Good afternoon, friends, and welcome to the Old Meeting House. We are an open and affirming community church in which everyone who enters this space is welcomed and embraced for exactly who you are. Before we begin, I just have a couple quick housekeeping items. Bathrooms are down the hill in the parish house, and the service is being live streamed down there as well, so you won't miss it. Also on the second floor of the parish house is staffed nursery care for young children who might like a little bit of a break. And in the unlikely event that we do need to leave the church quickly, in addition to the doors through which you entered, the back window to my left also does serve as an emergency exit, and I promise you that there are stairs on the other side to guide you gently down. We are called here today, connected by a beautiful, glowing thread, which is the absolute love and exuberant joy that Charlie Catlin brought into this world. And in the last few days, I have been overwhelmed by joyful stories that I have heard, stemming from mostly simple, casual mentions of moments that were, in fact, truly amazing. From pink-haired sojourns to the Barbie movie, to endless sing-alongs, to a love for chocolate like no other, the excitement of Charlie's presence amongst us all just becomes clearer and clearer. Anyone who cannot imagine a knitting group or a church choir rehearsal as a place for a true party has never been to either one of those events with Charlie Catlin. And today, no matter what we believe about the meaning and the purpose of life or the mystery of death, we can be sure that life continues in the memories of those who knew us and loved us. And each of you has a story about how she touched your life. Some of you have many. May they remain with you. May they lift you up as we share them today. May the light of Charlie's presence in each of our lives continue to grow and continue to shine so brightly. We welcome you. We are glad you are here. Let us now join together today to create a sacred space in which we listen deeply, in which we welcome tears and laughter, and hold each other in the warm embrace of our arms and of our hearts. In the words of Wendell Berry, printed on the back of your bulletins, "When I rise up, let me rise up joyful like a bird, and when I fall, let me fall without regret like a leaf." May those words, so visible through the life of Charlie Catlin, be a guiding light for us all. And now please rise in body or in spirit, and as we sing together one of Charlie's favorite hymns, "Abide with Me." You will find it in the blue hymnals in your pews. It's number 99. Please be seated.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming near and far. I'd like to thank the old meeting house and the leadership team here and the congregation for taking such great care of us as usual. Thank you. In case you're unaware, I am Charlie, or Susan's youngest child, her baby forever. That is a technical term and legally binding in our family. It's not because I cry a lot, though I do, and I probably will if I haven't already. I am my mom's baby forever because we made a deal when I was somewhere around the age her grandsons Will and Hudson are now. The deal went as follows. If she sledded down Suicide Hill with me, I would thereby be her baby forever. This sled run was a short, steep, stump-ridden slope that ended abruptly in a metal livestock fence in our backyard. I think she made out well in that deal because at least once a year for my entire life, she would remind me that I had agreed to be her baby forever in order to persuade me to do this or that. But it worked out for me too. I often received treatment that would leave my sister's jaws on the floor, like being able to sell crab apples picked off the driveway that I had washed and lined up on the porch for actual money. Even though she named my sisters after her own sisters and did not name me after her baby brother Tony, I credit her adoration of him for a lot of my special treatment. It is good to be the baby boy. Now, pardon me if I don't get these details exactly right, but my mother was raised Catholic, and St. Francis was assigned to be her patron saint. Even though her larger-than-life grandfather was an Episcopalian bishop of Southern Ohio, and she belonged to this relaxed congregational church as an adult, I think this edifice of her early religious life is still significant. Among other things, St. Francis is recognized for his appreciation of animals. It is said that his donkey wept when St. Francis thanked him for his years of service from his deathbed. I think my parents' dog, Ebby, has that capacity. Mom's first horseback riding coach ever even called her Francis, because there already was a Susan at the barn. And horses may have been her first love, but it also could have been candy. She could ride her horse to the pony keg and buy candy. She would ride her horse all over Indian Hill, Cincinnati. She would fox hunt, do equestrian, trail ride, groom and care for her horses. She also grew up around dogs. And there was a bird in the home at one point named Candle, Red Candle. So it's of no great surprise that she and my father's bond was born from dog ownership. It could have a little to do with her cursing like a sailor that the Hobson girls were notorious for in Denver. That attracted this fresh from Vietnam Navy man, but mostly I think it was dogs. Her college dog was named Charlie, and Dad's friends first learned of her as that Charlie dog girl. Their relationship grew, as did the pack of dogs they kept, until they were married and started their own litter of humans. Is it a coincidence that my dad became a veterinarian? Probably not. There were always dogs in our family, and at times cats, goldfish, sheep, cows, and of course, horses. One of the last things you could really count on my mom to do by herself was feed the birdies. This love of animals has been passed down to her children and her grandchildren, as if St. Francis is the patron saint of all of us Catlins. If I have to explain to you the inherent beauty, honesty, earnestness, mindfulness, mutual respect, and affection of animals, then you probably would not understand anyway. My mom was a gamer. She was fun. She was undaunted. The skills and abilities she obtained throughout her life are numerous and varied. A lifelong jock, she would hurl herself into any physical activity with confidence, like skiing, motorcycle riding, and house building. When my father put together a little builder starter kit for my first day of construction work, it included her well-worn leather nailing apron. That is instant credibility. She invented her own faster knitting technique and was incredibly productive, this being the last sweater she made for me. Like both of her sisters, she was a member of Octet, an elite singing group at their boarding school, and continued to sing in choir and musicals at this church throughout her life. Unfortunately, her uncanny ability to harmonize did not make it to the next generation. At Christmas, stockings had a set of jacks, and under the tree, new family board or card games were guaranteed. Watching sports was and is religious in our family, from pilgrimages to horse shows, boarding school, and collegiate athletics for her kids, to the ritual of watching sports on TV at home during the weekend. She always had the camera and made the pictures and memories happen. Whatever fun thing it was that would bring our family closer together was her imperative. My mom set a great example of duty, responsibility, and pride in her work. Her unwillingness to skip school to go skiing on powder days at the University of Denver confounded my father on her way to securing her degree in education. The bulk of her career as an educator was spent as a sixth grade language arts teacher. A one-time finalist for the Vermont Teacher of the Year, her passion and insistence that students meet their potential was unrelenting. She was not an easy A type of teacher, and when I was in her middle school, I got to hear all about it from my contemporaries in the hallways and on the playgrounds. Needless to say, none of them seemed grateful at the time. I think her ability to meet her students where they were, inspiring the high flyers and grinding it out with the rest of us, was crucial to her success and her enjoyment in retirement. She was truly energized and inspired by her coworkers and thrived on the pursuit of exceptionalism in all areas of education. She loved interacting with people, showing respect and good manners, and I know for a fact that she was able to connect profoundly with students, teachers, administrators, and parents on a professional and personal level. Not being a bookworm as a child, it takes a special level of personal understanding to pursue and achieve the career that she did. Now, it wasn't all white doves and straight set victories on the tennis court for my mother. She met her fair share of struggles in this life. Her impulsiveness, for one, which is key to having a great time, but did tend to chip away at the old pocketbook. My father, as a small business owner and son of a modest, real Vermonter, had the desire and the QuickBooks software to craft a thorough family budget. And we would have family budget meetings, and he would print out the financial breakdowns, and we'd go over it line by line. Looking back, I give these efforts of his a lot of credit for my ability to balance my own finances, but at the time, these were terribly boring family meetings, except for the line item that contained Mom's clothing budget. Those numbers never came close to lining up. She would be entire decimal places out of whack with the budget. When she became a grandmother, she would watch my daughter once a week. And often, we would come home from work to see Lily had been equipped with a few new fancy Lily Pulitzer dresses. And there was usually a few shopping bags for herself still in the car. Mom took fashion risks. She was stylish and beautiful. And for better or for worse, she managed to pass all of that on to my daughter. Mom's good looks and engaging personality kept her cognitive decline hidden from many, but unfortunately for her, Mom's close friends became adept at distracting her on shopping trips so they could put back armloads of impulse buys that she had hauled up to the register. And at the memory care facility, she had a unique ability of identifying personal and often handmade keepsakes in other people's rooms and taking them back to her own. I know this personality quirk taxed my parents' marriage, but they survived, and I'm thankful that they did. My mom needed my dad's support. He has always kept her heart safe. He was the last thing in her life that she knew was definitively good. It is possible to exist in this world, and even this quaint little town, without obtaining the support and friend group that my parents have acquired. Just by being a little more introverted, one could miss out on a multitude of experiences and relationships. But Charlie Catlin was not one to let the world pass her by. She was so active in her community and diverse in her pursuits. And thankfully, she dragged the rest of us along for the ride. She let all of us enrich the joyful experience that was her life. My mother taught me that life is to be enjoyed and that you have to make your own luck. And I'm so fortunate to be her baby forever.
Luke, that was wonderful. Your mom would be so proud, and she is proud. Well, I'm Betsy Hobson, Charlie's sister, and one of the namesakes of all the people she named. It is so nice to see all of you here today to give testament to our love for Charlie, or Chucky, or Aunt Char, or Sue, or Susan, or Susie, or Mom, or Butt. She was always amused by all those nicknames. But really, aren't nicknames just a sign of affection? It makes sense that she has so many nicknames. Just look at how many of us are here to celebrate her life and our love for her. Exactly 1 year ago to the day that Charlie died, I lost a dear friend of mine in California who was my bestie. She suffered from dementia, and her husband sent an email when she finally passed away entitled, "The Long Goodbye." And that is what it has been for me anyway, such a long period of sadness and goodbye to my beloved sister, with whom I shared so many adventures. But I want to focus on times of happiness with Charlie. I think I'm the only one of the Hobsons who actually called her Charlie, probably because I lived with Mark and Charlie in Evergreen, Colorado for a time, and from so many visits here after that, and wherever, Philadelphia and wherever they went. Before Susan met Mark, and I was going to tell you about this meeting, but I think Luke covered that pretty well, at the University of Denver, because the dog Charlie, and Mark never was, I'll just say, Mark was really infatuated her, but too shy to speak to her. But he spoke to his housemates about her all the time, calling her Charlie. So he finally got up his nerve, and from then on she was Charlie. One often had to clarify if they were talking about Charlie the dog or Charlie the girl. And I don't know why we would be confused, but it happened often. They acquired many other dogs together, and our parents were always lamenting the fact that they were raising dogs instead of grandchildren. But those came along in due time. I married Mark's DU roommate, Gary Garrett, and we had kids the same age, though I stopped at 2. In fact, I was scheduled to have the first Hobson grandchild, but Charlie beat me to it. I'm sure you all know, and I can tell from your chuckles, her as a very competitive person, and usually the winner. Sarah Catlin was born on December 23rd, 1975. My son Tyler came 2 days later on December 25th. That really pissed me off. But back to Cincy and our formative years. I often describe my childhood as idyllic. There were 5 of us, starting with our brother Henry, who passed away a couple of years ago. Then came me, then Susan, then a little gap of 4 years in the every other year scheme before Sarah and Tony came along. Susan and I, and in Cincinnati she was Susan. Susan and I were collectively called the girls. Sarah and Tony were the little kids. And Henry, who played a lot of golf with Gramps, was just H. I think Susan was a lot more fun than me in general, and frankly, from that hymn, I don't think there was ever an impulse she resisted. I hope she sang that 3rd verse a lot, but it didn't work. Anyway, she always accused me of being boring because I read so much. I bet Sarah and Tony would agree that she was a lot more fun because she often included them in her play. One incident that illustrates, and she was a lot more fun, but that is also a kind of a synonym for mischief. One incident that illustrates that mischief occurred in Fisher's Island when we visited there as kids. Dad used to save all his change in a jar that was called chicken feed, and every night he'd empty his pockets into this jar. Well, Susan's impulse for candy required money, which we didn't have. So she stole the money out of Dad's chicken feed. And I was going to be her accomplice, but she knew, because I was a goody-goody, that I would never go along with this. So she put all the change in her pockets and said, "Hey, Bets, why don't we go down to the theater? You know, people standing there in the dark, they're going to reach in their pockets for their money. They're going to drop it all over in the grass. We could probably find it." I never knew until we were adults that that's what had happened. Anyway, she got her money, we got some candy, and driving over here today, I was reminded of another mischief. She went to Ireland or Scotland or somewhere on a riding trip, maybe with Tim, her riding teacher from many, many years, and she decided to buy a horse all over in Ireland, and she brought it home. And I mean, talk about a budget buster. Well, and guess what that horse's name was? Betsy. I don't know if she named it Betsy, but that was its name. Anyway, we were basically feral children, and the only rule was to be in your seat for dinner at 7 p.m. In the beginning, Susan and I shared a room, and we did everything together. We lived on a huge property, 150 acres, that our grandparents, or these were our mother's parents, had purchased outside of Cincinnati. Grandma was something of a society matron, but Gramps loved nature and golf. I think we took more after him. He was a champion golfer. He raised bees. He was a horseman, as well as a farmer and a gardener. So we had horses, a creek filled with bluegills to play in, many acres to roam, as well as a pool and tennis courts. And these tennis courts and the pool were right next to the pasture where Gramps was grazing his cattle. Now, I didn't really think that was so weird, but it didn't always smell so great there. Anyway, our cousins, the Ives, also lived on this property. And so that was our little gang. There were no other neighbors anywhere near us. We played with Bobby and George, who were close to our age, and we played whatever Bobby said we were going to play, because he was the oldest by 8 days over me. I've been told that Sarah Catlin, that oldest grandchild, was that same kind of leader with her cousins. Anyway, we mostly did athletic things, so, we were trained at a young age in athletics and played whatever sport was in season. But sometimes, Susan and I would sneak away to our room so Bobby couldn't find us, lock our door, and play with dolls. In the summer, either Mom or Aunt Jean would drop us off at the Camargo Club, and we would play 9 holes of golf, and then go eat lunch at the snack bar, play tennis, and swim. Doesn't this just sound great? By the way, at 16, we were required to get paying jobs, and Susan became a bank teller. Connection. So you see where I'm going with this. I don't know if her paperwork balanced it ever. Anyway, we also took riding lessons, and horsemanship became an important part of Susan's life. When we were given our own horses to keep at home, she was given a pony named Cracker Jack. She loved that pony. And then that was the nickname of the love of her life, Pony. Anyway, we would compete in local shows, and Cracker Jack won everything. But we did not have a trailer. So in order to get to shows or pony club, we had to ride over hill and dale, encountering many obstacles along the way that seemed insurmountable, but not for us. We dubbed ourselves the Unstoppables because we always made it through. Those idyllic days came to an end naturally and inevitably. We all went off to boarding school, which was not a choice, but we were allowed to choose our school, and I chose St. Timothy's School over Ethel Walker's. That's where our mom went. I'm not sure that says anything, except St. Tim's had a great horse program. And the other girls followed me there. The boys went where all Hobson men went, to Andover. When our parents passed away in the late 90s, we inherited the property on Fisher's Island, appropriately named Hobby House by our other grandfather, Gabby. One of the rituals that we started was the spring annual meeting, otherwise known as SAM, held sometime after the waters turned on, usually late April or May, and the four of us would gather. At the first such meeting, there arose a small conflict. Both Susan and Tony claimed the king and queen bedroom. Neither would yield, so the solution was that they slept together in that big bed for many years. Susan attended last year's SAM, accompanied by Luke, and she and I were roommates again. Over the years, we have enjoyed the coming together of the four of us at SAM, spouses not invited, and last year, though somewhat difficult, it was a joy to be together one last time. And she was still able to sing her part in the first Noel, the Hobson sisters' biggest hit. I brought some very cute pictures from our last SAM meeting and others, so please ask me to show you when we're at the refreshments. I want to end by quoting an Inuit proverb. The Inuit are a group of indigenous peoples that traditionally inhabit the Arctic and subarctic regions of North America, including Quebec, just a bit north of here. It expresses a beautiful thought one might have when looking up at the stars in the sky and thinking about those we have lost and who we miss so much. It goes like this. Perhaps they are not stars, but rather openings in heaven, where the love of our lost ones pours through and shines down upon us to let us know that they are happy. Thank you.
Please join me now in saying together the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Hello, everybody. First, before I introduce myself to you, many of whom I already know and have had good fortune to call them my friends, I just wanted to let you all know how wonderful it is to know that Susan and Mark have nurtured and been nurtured by such an incredible community of friends, to share in their joys and to support them in their sorrows. I'm also very thankful to be part of that community. So I am the other Susan, Susan Talbot, and fortunately Susan had enough nicknames like Char or Charlie so that when we got together there was really any confusion. We first met at a prep school that Betsy spoke of in Maryland called St. Timothy's. St. Tim's was better. Almost 60 years ago. And soon after we met, Susan, for some reason, and I can no longer recollect what it is, started calling me Butt. Perhaps just short for Talbot. But it stuck, and for better or worse, it's been adopted by the rest of her family as well. And for some reason, I can no longer recollect, I started calling her Butt. So, my own nickname for her. When we met at St. Tim's, we were just 15 years old, and pretty immediately after introduced by our older sisters, who were seniors at the time, we became, along with Heidi Fitz, the threesome of best friends. Susan truly has had a lot of best friends, and even knowing that, when you were with her, you really were her best friend. It's hard to lose such a good friend once, and twice seemed almost unbearable. But I relive all this journey again in a heartbeat. She's brought so much caring and kindness, love and laughter into my husband Spike's and my life, into so many of yours. Without any further explanation, I felt she just got me. So now I wish to talk about the journey and not the destination. So what stories can I tell? One that I remember well is early in our friendship at St. Tim's, Susan somehow talked me into trying out for the cheering lead squad. Well, those who know me know she had to be pretty damn persuasive. Well, we were a total flop. But I'm convinced we provided the most entertainment that day to anyone who had the opportunity to watch her performance. Our interviewers were in total hysterics. But Susan wasn't going to be denied. And she eventually became a member of the cheerleaders, and of course she did. She brought so much fun and enthusiasm into it, and she gladly cheered for all her friends. We had the opportunity to share a two-girl room our senior year, and fortunately, we were well-suited in our propensity to be just absolute slobs. Although I would object when the height of the clothing on the floor of our closet made it impossible to even think about hanging up anything that might possibly be clean. No, we got no tidy awards. I also had the death-defying duty of waking Susan up Sunday mornings as she had to leave earlier to attend Catholic Mass. It's like poking a stick in a hornet's nest, dodging flailing arms. I never knew quite certain if she was actually awake or not, so I had to poke her again. I finally threatened to have a lower classman who also attended Mass and who scared her a little for some reason, wake her up instead of me. Well, it wasn't perfect, but waking up became a little less dangerous. Right after our high school graduation, I spent the summer with Susan in the Cincinnati Hobby House. I had several memories that summer. One, Mr. and Mrs. Hobson only asked me once to play bridge with them. An invitation never came back again. Although Susan did go on to play with some of her friends, well, one of them wasn't me. We smoked too many cigarettes, but we were so cool. Or we thought we were anyways. And three, Susan was a star in the Head Start program in a crazy part of Cincinnati where we volunteered that summer. We were in different classrooms. One day, when I went down the hall to pick her up, I found her sitting on the floor, surrounded by her enthusiastic young students. We're all laughing, as she was, as they determinedly were braiding her very blonde, very straight hair to seemingly hundreds of braids. Perhaps that was just the beginning of her love to be a teacher in the classroom. Forward to a wedding in Cincinnati, 1971, in which both Heidi Fitz and I were bridesmaids. I'd never met Mark, but two things I remember well. I may not get this exactly right, but one, his amazing toast to Susan that night before the wedding, I believe borrowed lines of love from James Taylor's song, There's Something in the Way She Moves. And I feel fine anytime she's around me now. she's around me now almost all the time. If I'm well, you can tell she's been with me now. She's been with me now quite a long, long time, and I feel fine. On a lighter note, it was unclear to me the day of the wedding if Mark was actually going to make it to the altar or not. As he was slightly under the weather, let's say for over-celebrating, and there had been some talk of needing oxygen, but I'm not quite sure about that. But he did make it, and in great form. Oh, and if any of you want to hear a story about Tony Hobson and how he fared the night before the wedding, just let me know afterward. Next in our journey came Susan's, Mark's, mine, and eventually my husband Spike's time at University of Vermont. Susan was very pregnant with Sarah. Mark was neck deep in pre-vet courses. I felt like the great imposter starting medical school. So after Sarah was born and adventures in parenting started, we decided we all need a pop-off valve. Enters adventures in ice hockey. We started having one meal a night, once a week, for a 9:30 ice time and late evening co-ed ice hockey. Susan and I eventually joined the UVM's intramural women's ice hockey league in the same forward line. Our team, the Mother Puckers, gained notoriety not just for the name, but for winning the women's intramural ice hockey title, not once, not twice, 3 times in a row. For at a time when St. Tim's threesome, Susan, Heidi, and I became a sixsome with husbands on board for adventures near and far. And that usually included skiing or golf. Yes, golf. Which formerly, and sometimes currently, was regarded by me in total agreement with Mark Twain, a good walk spoiled. I do remember very vividly on our golf trip to Scotland, Susan saying, okay, there's only 4 people could be on the course at one time. This means 5 of the 6, that wasn't me, will have to draw straws, and whoever gets the short straw will have to spend the day with Bud. Thanks. Now, I remember hiking with Mark one day. The only hiking Susan was going to do was on the golf course. I remember David Fitz and I touring the Whiskey Trail one day, and I remember Heidi and I went on a beautiful garden towards St. Andrews one day, but I don't believe that either my husband or Susan ever drew the short straw. Go figure. Well, it was just one more way Spike and Susan became really good friends. So trips to Fisher's Island began another chapter of our friendship. Before relating one last story, I have a question. Who the devil ever invented puzzle etiquette? Those Hobsons? One of the things I remember most about Susan is her laughter and how contagious it was. I remember our last sixsome trip to Fisher's Island that now had actually turned into a tensome trips with Wendy and Greg, Olivia and Lou becoming our new friends. This was the summer before last, and Susan was having a harder time and was feeling poorly enough one day that Mark needed to get a golf cart to bring her back in from the Hay Harbor golf course. When Mark parked the car at Hobby House, slid out of the driver's seat to get her something to drink, my husband slipped in beside her and just started talking with her in a low enough voice I could only hear some of what he was saying. But Susan started laughing and laughing and laughing, as did we all, either silently smiling or outright laughing for the pure joy of the moment. So in closing, I'd like to end where our friendship began in full circle. This is our graduation book from St. Tim's, and each senior was allotted a half page, and she chose 3 classmates to choose a quote for her and then added any sayings she used or something that speaks to her character. She chose Heidi and me and one other classmate. Susan's quote, "A friend is a person with whom I may be sincere, before whom I may think aloud," by Ralph Emerson. She weaves a web of fun. She weaved a web of fun, the best in all the land.
I can just sit here, right? Get up. It's good to see you all here. I'm Wendy, a friend of Charlie's and Mark's and all you guys, and all you guys. She had a lot of friends, and this was really hard for me because I'm not sure how to keep it brief. There's so many stories here. We all have just so many. And so I didn't know what to say, so I had this little conversation in my head with Charlie. This is after she passed, obviously. And I'm talking to her thinking, okay, what do you really want me to say? And what I heard back immediately was lie. Make me look really good. And that was really easy to do. So it wasn't that helpful, though, and she just looks good anyway. So I hope you'll share your stories and savor your stories. Keep her in our hearts forever. And I, like most of you here, I feel so lucky to have known Charlie as my friend. And as friends, I got to know her highs and lows. I'm sure many of you have too. And we've experienced her compassion, her picking us up, her care, her sitting by us in the hospital, her honesty, brutal honesty sometimes, her compassion. Did I say that already? I think so. I'm not really reading this very well. Her thoughtfulness. When we've been frustrated by her, we still loved her. And frustrated sometimes by her forgetfulness. And we've had outrageous adventures. And we've never been arrested. And we've laughed with her. No, really, we never have. We've laughed with her until we've, well, you know, sort of come close to wetting her pants. I hope not everybody heard that. Anyway, she was willing to laugh at herself most of the time. And she continually reminded me how valuable her friendships were with all of you, including how valuable mine was with her. She valued relationships more than anything else, even more than shopping and chocolate. I met Charlie the first week we lived in East Montpelier. I was gardening with my son Luke, who had just turned 2, and Charlie comes by on a horse, bareback, a Sandy England's horse, and Luke is hanging on behind her Luke. So we always call them my Luke and your Luke. It's just how we do it. And we learned very quickly that we both had a lot in common. We both had recently moved to town. We both had 3 kids, both played tennis, both had husbands starting new practices and always on call. And she invited us right over for pizza, and we became good friends. And being Charlie's friend was wonderful. It still is. First of all, she had moved there before me, so she had a lot of friends already, and they reached out to me because of her. And being her friend meant that she had my back. She was there for me when I needed anything. Did I already say this? Sorry. Maybe I caught her disease. A ride, an extra hand, a stimulating conversation. And certainly she was there when I needed to cry and laugh, and mostly to play. She was a player, a gamer, as Betsy said. But she was also mostly a player because she wanted to be with her friends. I could count on her pretty much to say yes to anything if I would do it with her. Which brings me to a little story I wanted to share. Probably 20 years ago, I somehow talked Charlie into venturing off to Mexico with myself and my sister Bonnie, and Mark and Greg were going to meet us at the end of the trip, the last week of the trip. And we would stay with them in a nice touristy golf resort kind of place. But the 3 women were going to go adventuring. You can tell it's going to end badly right there. But anyway, Charlie, so I talked her into this, and the first part of the trip, it was going to be Charlie, who spoke no Spanish, my sister Bonnie, who spoke even less Spanish, and me, who somehow convinced them that I could speak a little because I could say gracias and por favor and donde. Well, it turned out that I could also say donde gasolina, which came in handy. We set out to this desolate island that was, I think it's been washed away by a hurricane now. It doesn't exist. It was supposed to be about a 5-hour drive and a very short boat ride. Well, it took us many more hours than that. Stops for lots of directions, stops for hitchhikers who we thought might know where we were going. And it was dark, and it got a little scary. And it was still a hoot, a total hoot. Charlie had brought her dictionary, of course, and coached my sister on what to say when she went into the store to get directions. But Charlie, of course, told her to go in and say, estoy estreñido. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Anybody know what that means? It means I'm constipated. So my sister did, but she didn't really get many directions back. Anyway, we had a blast, and Charlie, of course, insisted on lugging, anybody who's ever traveled with her, lugging all her stuff, her golf course, full bottles of shampoo, everything with her, through to this little town. We get on a lancha, which is a little rowboat with a motor, and head out into this ocean by moonlight, not knowing where we were going. But somehow we got someplace, and we had a great time. There were no golf courses there. I had told her that, but she didn't believe me. And of course, Charlie, being the friendly person she was, had to bring somebody back with us. She made friends with somebody who worked there and invited him to join us on the rest of our trip. And that was fine. It was great. People just liked her. They loved Charlie. She was warm, friendly, and caring. And part of Charlie's fun and her sense of humor was often a little inappropriate. I mean, come on. And while she really didn't want her students or her grandchildren to misbehave, no, she was really good at goading others to misbehave a little bit. She liked to encourage the rebel in me, and it sounds like others, to do some of these tricky things or mischief, and would get us sometimes in trouble with our pranks. But I remember getting a call this was right after we moved here, and our kids started school, from Brian O'Regan. He's going to correct me on this, but it was a call to say that our sweet little kindergartner, Brooke, had mooned the entire bus. And he laughed about it, I think, and we sort of laughed about it because we knew exactly who had taught her how to do this. She had a reputation for some pranks like that. Charlie was wonderful, but she did have some tragedies in her life. Betsy's death, the biggest sorrow any parent can possibly go through, and the tragedy of slowly losing parts of her mind because of Alzheimer's. And she wasn't without demons, haunting demons at times, but she was open about these. She let herself share her fears, her flaws, her anxieties, her shopping compulsion, her frustrations with slowly losing her mind, or her memory at least. She didn't lose her mind. She let herself be open and vulnerable, not so much to complain and whine about it, but really to try to figure things out and get help and meet those needs. And it was amazing to watch all her friends, especially her family, Mark and Sarah and Luke and Jen and everybody else, continually jump in to help, to make adjustments, to help her be successful in her daily tasks, to help her keep her self-respect. Okay, there's a whole nother page. Sorry. I hadn't typed this out right before I got here. And while she didn't always verbalize to them to Mark and her kids. She told me over and over how grateful she was for them, especially Mark. And I know it wasn't easy for them, but it seemed like they always had compassion for her and always focused on trying to make her less scared, less confused, happier, even when it meant that they had to do more and more. They really protected her from the horrors of that disease. I'm sure as this day goes on and the weeks pass, that I will continue to learn about Charlie from all your stories and from you, and about who she was, and more about the amazing and athletic and wonderful and the bad things she did. I've already gotten so much from her, and I've learned so much from her. I've learned to be more honest and open with friends, to share feelings, even when they're hard, to give each other time. Boy, was she good at that. To honor commitments, to get to the net as fast as possible, to knit and pick up lost stitches, sort of, to read a lot of books, to use correct grammar, to have fun, and to say yes to new adventures. And most of all, to let your family and friends and those you love know that they matter. We all mattered so much to her. Thank you.
I'm Rona Kinsley. I'm the pastor emerita of the Old Meeting House. I first met Charlie in 2009 when I came here as their interim minister. And Charlie was part of a very faithful member of a meditation group that I started. And as I've heard all the stories about Charlie, I'm kind of thinking that 20 minutes of silence must have been a real stretch for her. But now, if you will please rise for the commendation. Dearest Charlie, into the dance of the stars and the planets, we let you go. Into the cycle of living and dying and rising again, we let you go. Into the Spirit's breath and the hands of the Maker, we let you go. Into the sadness and smiles of our memories, we let you go. We love you, we miss you, we release you. Go safely, go dancing, go running home. Into your hands, loving God, we commend your servant Charlie. Receive her into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the company of the saints in light. Amen. And if you can remain standing and silent, we'll ring the bell and then sing our final hymn. And now, with the kind of joy and exuberance that characterized Charlie's life, let's sing hymn number 595, Some Glad Morning.
After the benediction, please allow the family a few minutes to exit first to receive you and our reception down at the parish house. Will you pray with me? Gracious God, support us all the days long until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes and the busy world is hushed and the fever of life is over and our work is done. Then, in your tender mercy, grant us a safe lodging, a holy rest, and peace, peace at the last. May every light we encounter and every laugh we share be a reminder of the happiness that Susan, Charlie, Catlin brought to our lives. And may it reflect that in her, this world and our God are so well pleased. Amen. Friends, may your spirit dance out of this sanctuary today, enlightened by the stories you've heard and emboldened by the joy, the love, and yes, the mischief of this beautiful spirit who we are now gathered to honor. Go in peace and enjoy. Go in the exuberance that we heard today.